Hey everybody. Um, well, today is my first No Man's Sky video. My first video actually. I just wanted to show kind of some of the stuff I've been playing with and with the electrical systems in this game. Um, the inverter switch and the auto switch kind of enable a lot of cool like logic possibilities. I'm not sure what other people have done. I'm trying to kind of challenge myself by not really looking anything up. Even like I'm not a computer science guy. I'm an HVAC guy. I troubleshoot HVAC machines for a living, and occasionally I get to do some building automation controls programming. But that's it. Not really. Never really done anything like what I'm doing here. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of show some of the possibilities of what you can do with just these switches in this game so far. I'll kind of take you through kind of the early experiments and kind of where I am now and what I'm trying to do in the future. And it's just going to get more complicated as I find more things to do with this. So let's get started. This is my base. I called it Firewatch because we're extremely high up. Here, I'll show you. We're high up on a hill. So on actually a floating rock, it's just kind of it's kind of the first base I really built out and really tried to do some stuff with. Yeah, just a little base here, and then down here, this is kind of where I moved on to later to expand the base. There's a giant solar power plant full of solar panels and batteries, a salt refinery, and a little place to house my my exo craft or whatever. And we'll get down there and I'll show kind of some of the systems and how they work down there. So let's get back. And for reference, I'm going to put timestamps in the description of the video if you just want to see some of the logic for some of the more advanced stuff down there. There's my power plant down there, and oxygen factory. Here, I'll show you. Kind of see it. Yeah, that's where the most advanced stuff's happening right now, and we'll get there towards the end. Yeah, here's kind of the valley we're in. There's my buddy's base. We kind of found this planet a while back and started kind of trying to just build out. Like, I don't know if the game can handle it, but I built that power plant down there to eventually build like a whole like kind of like city with a bunch of automated controls and stuff, but we'll see if that's even possible. So where do we start? So I guess, yeah, this is the base. When I first kind of got into the electricity stuff, I was like, okay, we need solar, so built out this little solar thing with some glass things. I have a valve index, so it's fun to get in here and just kind of be in these spaces. And I kind of designed all these spaces so you could kind of stand in them, and it feels kind of cool. So anyway, solar. Let's get into the build mode. And just kind of check out the wiring. So yeah, I just started out with this. Just made a little daisy chain of solar panels. This one's isolated from the rest because this is just strictly my daylight sensing input. So I don't want it getting any backfeeding power from the batteries once it's nighttime. I could make now that I think about it, I could make a switch that could disconnect the solar panels at night, but I don't want to do that. At least not right now. So anyway, yeah, being a trades guy, I'm used to being in electrical rooms. I'm used to having to work with breaker boxes and power distribution a little bit. I'm not like an expert. I'm not an expert on anything really. I just like to play. So, like if you are an electrician, if you are a computer science guy, and you're going to start seeing some of this shit, and you might laugh because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just figuring this out. So, anyhow, so here's like kind of my main disconnect. Main disconnect coming in from the solar panels. There's a few things grabbing power. Like this is a little experimental wall, like where I just play. These don't actually do anything right now, but some things are grabbing. Actually, no, nothing is except the batteries. Anyhow, so I'm gonna kind of be. It's been a while since I made these. I don't remember exactly what I did, so I'm gonna be kind of tracing it out and sounding kind of dumb for the duration of this video. So yeah, anyway, so this cuts power for the batteries and the solar panels, obviously, to everything else. This will shut down all the power in the whole base. And then each building gets its own disconnect here, as well as a disconnect on the building itself, just kind of like you would see in like sort of power distribution kinds of things. It's kind of complicated. See, like main disconnect. As I've gone, I've learned to organize more and more my wiring and how I route things to make it comprehensible, because I have had a lot of difficulty understanding what I'm doing when the complexity goes up. So this is kind of more early, so yeah, you're going to see some spaghetti wire that's happening more often than not until we get a little further along. So anyway, one of the first kind of controls things I did after building my salt mine down there was I wanted to be able to tell if I was producing enough battery power to keep these things running. Before I built the power plant, I just had a few batteries in that little building. You can see the green lights on top. That's indicating that the machines are running, the batteries are full, and everything's good. If I were to manually turn off the equipment, the blue light would come on as well as the red light, and then if the batteries just run out, the red light comes on and indicates that the batteries are empty. So I just have that up here since I'm mostly working up here in the refinery room, producing materials to continue to build and make money and stuff. It's nice to be able to just glance over and be like, okay, everything's working. Honestly, it's to the point where I don't need this. I don't think I'll ever run out of batteries until I actually start building out more power consuming devices, like in the valley, like building a little city if that's possible and consuming more power. Then it might become a problem, so that's when we'll know. Like, I'll show you the power plant in a sec actually. So let's head down. This will go to the salt mine. So yeah, here's the salt mine. I've made little message things to kind of, if strangers show up, they can kind of get an idea of where they are. I noticed that the message devices have like little switch input little models 3D models on them, but you can't actually hook wiring up to them. But I thought it would be nice to be able to control these message things with switches, because these are going to pop up multiple times as I'm walking by the little switches, and it just doesn't feel very streamlined or smooth. So anyhow, so this is one of the first like little controls projects I wanted to do. I just had the idea of, I want this door to open, I want some lights to turn on, and as I'm walking down the hall, I want lights to turn on. It wasn't quite as successful as I'd like it to be, but it works. It gets kind of the job done. So I'll show you it working, and then we'll go into where I've buried the logic inside the building. And I'm just kind of building these like concrete foundations where I'm stashing like all the power and logic and controls like in these little special rooms. That's kind of been the idea, and I've been iterating on these rooms, kind of making kind of the organization of how I'm doing this like better and better until I can really get it. Because there's no labels, there's no way to tell what you're doing if you're not keeping track. So yeah, that's the door opening with my switch, and then as I walk down here, it's supposed to trigger on more stuff. Another door, teleport back up top. I've built a battery farm here. This whole floor is full of batteries with room for expansion. As we build out, we may need more power, so time will tell. I haven't actually done the math to see how much I need for anything because I'm lazy and I'm not an engineer. So yeah, solar panels up the wazoo. Connects down to batteries. So yeah, I got a disconnect out here too. So yeah, solar panels, you can disconnect that from the batteries. Got batteries, they're slowly consuming power. And let's go to the basement where the logic is stashed. So yeah, the logic for this was fairly basic. So yeah, I kind of treat it like inputs, outputs. You got your inputs on the left and your outputs on the right. I've since improved my workflow a little bit, so I might be critiquing myself a little bit, just having not seen this in a while. So yeah, I kind of like what I've noticed has been helping has been routing all of my wiring kind of away from here so I don't accidentally hit the wrong shit. That's been a big help. But so anyway, all my inputs are here. So these are all motion detectors, I believe, in series. Like so, like you have like the first one is like hidden under the bridge. It trips and opens the door. Um, but I also needed them to have some kind of logic to where like there could be kind of a rolling like kind of sequence of lights turning on and off, and it's not quite perfect, and it would take, I think, probably a longer hallway, a few more sensors to really make a smooth like this light turns on, this light turns on, this light turns on in sequence, to make kind of, I don't know, some kind of theatrical like kind of cool kind of like automated experience. But yeah, I just kind of abandoned it because it became kind of a mess, and I had some other ideas I wanted to try, so I just kind of moved on and built more buildings and built more kind of walls like this, and you'll see kind of where it's going as we go further along. But that's that. Here, if you want to get one more look at the logic. So I've got main power coming in, and I try to isolate my I try to isolate like my control power and my output power. Now I don't know if I did that here. I probably didn't. But like not isolating your power from your controls and your outputs can cause a lot of weird backfeeding issues where something stays energized that you weren't intending. So the more I go along, the more I just try to keep my control voltage separate from my kind of what I call line voltage, which you'd say in kind of a trade, I guess. So, so that's the first thing. Let's go through this teleport. And yeah, oh yeah, the other part is I've got all my lights, all my exterior lighting. Actually, all my lights are tied to, except for my refinery room. That does turn on all the time. They're tied to that single solar panel out there. Every time it shuts off, it lets go of lets go of the inverter switch, and it allows power to pass through into all my exterior lighting. So sun comes up, it comes down, power consumption stops. It's kind of nice. It's more just like fancy. I don't think it has a huge benefit, but it was more just to see if I could do it. So let's head to the oxygen extraction plant or whatever, and then we'll get into some of the more advanced stuff like the combination block, and then finally the project that I'm trying to put together now. What I've learned, kind of taking everything I've learned and trying to just produce a better and better workflow, a better and better systems where I can keep track of everything, and ultimately just produce greater and greater complexity without as many headaches. So this is kind of my newest best thing, but it's still itself a work in progress, and I'll talk about that. So yeah, this is standard oxygen and power company, or power corporation or whatever. That's what I called it. I don't know, just like all kind of role-playing, imaginary shit. So yeah, you got so it's mostly designed to be a quick in and out. Like you come here and bam, here's 32,000 oxygen, or here's 62,000 oxygen, and we ultimately take this. This was kind of when I first started the game a couple weeks ago. My buddy Jaren had this kind of chlorine multiplication fab going. So I kind of just took that, scaled it up, and have just been producing, 5 refineries. Just fill them with oxygen and fill them with salt or chlorine, and they just make tons of chlorine. You can make millions. See, I've got like 65 million, and it takes a few minutes. You just cram these full and just let it rip, and you're making, and then just sell it, sell it onto the market. Try not to flood the market and lower the price, and basically, yeah. So you basically build a machine that gives you infinite building materials, and then you start building. So at least that's what I've figured out so far. I mean, I'm obviously really new to the game. Obviously don't know everything there is to know, so this is kind of where you'd start out if you teleported in. It's just kind of meant to look kind of, I don't know, kind of cool, I guess. But, hang on. So here's our control room entrance. Here's the combination lock, and first I'll show you it working, and then we'll, like last time, go in the back and check out the logic. So let's open it up. I'm gonna have to change the combo after showing this video online, but that's okay. Takes all the process, and then so yeah, you walk in, door stays open until you either hit a reset. Like any wrong button on this is a reset. So like if I hit 1, it'll just reset the mechanism. So like, yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's basically just, it's looking for the right buttons. Currently, I've devised a way, I haven't put it in yet, but I devised a way to make it so you have to press the buttons in order. Currently, you can just press any old button, and it will open the door. Like any button of the 4 buttons in any order, and it will open. So. And so yeah, and then so this floor switch, this floor switch is interesting because it does 2 things. So if the door is open, it resets the mechanism. If the door is closed, it opens the door, and that's it. So I'll show you all the logic for that too. Once we kind of step off here, and then it should close. And then this kind of goes into basically my control room. I'm gonna build kind of some switchboards up here and take all my input. Like I've started hanging lights and putting in all kinds of fancy stuff. Like I'm gonna do the same kind of thing. Indicator lights. I figured out how to make a flasher, so I'm gonna have like flashing red lights when if the batteries die, and like there's little like louvers. Like it's all kind of pretend because like there's not a whole lot of equipment you can control in this game that's really super pertinent to the game. Like I would love to see the developers like put little, like, they're called end switches in the business, like little relay contact things inside like the silos, inside the refineries, inside all the equipment that you can use, so you can kind of hook up power to it and see what it's doing. You can make little lights that turn on and off according to what's happening, and you start to get more data coming in from your equipment. The other thing I'd love to see would be like with the silos, the piping to the silos, like putting in like valve actuators or something, like basically switches, but they would be like, you'd be able to like intelligently like reroute your resources to different tanks, or like if a tank becomes full or if a tank becomes empty, like there's switches that you can use to measure those things and create logic to dictate where your resources are going. It would also be cool to be able to hook up the piping to refineries and connect input output to refineries and have like an automated, like, take these like low level resources and create complex resources like automatically through logic. Really you start adding those things and controls of the actual equipment, and you suddenly start to see there's a lot of possibilities for gameplay, like emergent gameplay that wasn't there before. Like that's what I'm trying to push right now. Obviously there's some limits because a lot of the equipment doesn't really use it. The other thing I'd love to be able to do is like be able to run the teleport wiring through switches and build like a switchboard, so I could make like almost like addresses or phone numbers for different teleporters. So you just have one teleporter, you dial in the address to the teleporter you want, and it takes you there. You don't have to have 5 or 6 teleporters in your space. You just have one and some switches, and that would be pretty cool, I think, to be able to build something like that. Yeah, who knows? Maybe, I mean, I'm nobody, but I kind of hope like the developers see this and maybe add the functionality in, because I think it'd be really cool. Anyhow, so this room is kind of like the next step of my logic. I think I skipped ahead a little bit, but this is like a big like input-output module where like I'd land all my incoming inputs, like buttons, switches, proximity switches, all those things would be landed in here, and then they would be able to be hooked up into these into logic, like complex logic. This is kind of general purpose. Like I don't think I'll need all these switches. I mean, maybe I will, but like mostly it's just to make it more general and more robust and easier to work in. I put these layers of windows so you can kind of run the wires through rather than crisscrossing all over each other. I'd rather just see it, kind of be able to really easily reference where everything's going all the way back into my outputs. So my outputs on their own separate power disconnect, like they're like all once the switches are you know, all this is like, so this is what I'm calling control voltage. It's on a separate power like disconnect over here, like, and it just helps isolate and keep things away from backfeeding and causing weird problems. So anyhow, so yeah, anyway, here's the outputs. These will be like to lights, to any equipment that gets powered, like my teleporters. Like I'll be able to make a switchboard where I can turn on and off all of my teleporters, or I can make them conditional, like run through a bunch of logic, like if this is happening, then shut these down, turn them on. Being that it's all locked down by a combination lock, I could even lock down the actual oxygen and make it so only people that know the code can get in and access the resources. I don't even know if multiplayer lets people steal your shit, but if it did, they wouldn't. It would be, well, maybe they would. I don't know if they had to hack it or something, but it would be a lot harder to figure it out with mechanisms like this. So now that we've kind of jumped in front a little bit, let's go back down and look at kind of the nightmare that was creating this combination lock. It's just a mess to look at. So this, the upstairs I just showed you was a reaction to making this. So here's all my button inputs. Oh yeah, wait, I guess let's just start at main power coming in. So if you are a computer science person or an engineering person and you're viewing this and just laughing because of how dumb I am, I understand, because I do not, like, I've literally just been trying to figure this out without asking for help or looking up answers. So this could be dumb and inefficient. I'm just kind of iterating every time, just making it a little better, a little more efficient, eliminating redundancies and dumb things. So anyhow, so yeah. So we got main power coming in. Actually, this is just control power. The main power is one of these points. We're grabbing up behind here. So see, again, I would have done this differently already. So, but anyway, control voltage here passes through. This is our reset, the inverter. So when nothing is energizing this switch, it's just powering the reset mechanism. That's all it powers. So whenever this button is hit, it will reset all the switches. See, the correct switches, let's just start at 4, number 4 here. See, the correct switch, its output reroutes back over to its input switch. So so what it does, when you click that button, it locks the button down. It keeps this energized and is continually passing through until you interrupt power to it. So, but you interrupt power to it by hitting a wrong key, by hitting that floor switch, and it resets this and resets the buttons, if that makes sense. You see how all the correct buttons reroute their output back into their input to lock the button in. Now, eventually, what I need to do is put something in between this step that kind of locks out like basically the first button is the only button that does anything. Like, that's what I need to do. So the first button will come in, and it will also trip and unlock the second button, and allow power to flow correctly to the second button. Otherwise, like, until that happens, the second button will just point back to the reset too. So I need to build that, and then it'll actually you'll be able to enter a specific order of button presses, and it's even harder to game from there. So that's kind of the next step of getting this a little more complete. Another thing that my wife brought up was it would be cool if, like, it waited till you pressed all 4 buttons, and then you hit enter or something, and it tells you if you got it right or wrong. And I've already thought of how to do that too. I could do that for sure, and then just have like a light, like a red light indicating you didn't enter the right code, and a green light entering the right code, but thered be no way to tell which button you got wrong or anything. So so that would be cool, and I definitely want to add that. I could even route some of this through the processor thing. I don't know what that's called up there, but I could route some of these outputs into the input slots on there and do that logic up there, just so I'm not making more of a mess, because this has already been kind of a nightmare. So anyway, I'm pretty sure I've made here like a 4-way, like it's called an AND switch. Like basically the output of this block here requires all 4 buttons to be pressed to produce an output. So I'm gonna try to explain this. It makes sense in my head, but it's actually pretty difficult to explain some of this stuff for me. So bear with me here. So let's just follow it out. Let's trace the wires. So you got first button press, number 4. It lands into the control button on the first auto switch, and allows power, line voltage to, or whatever we're gonna call it, to pass through this relay and go to the next relay. And you see that this control input also passes through to all four of these other relays and kind of opens those gates up. So in order to get stuff to pass further along, you have to press this first button, and then it'll allow things to go through. I think there's probably more efficient ways to do this. Like, I probably haven't figured out the most efficient way to do this. Actually, now just looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely cut a bunch of this shit out. This is just kind of my first stab at it, so anyhow, so yeah, and then it gets to the next button. The next button energizes this gate, and these ones, and allows power to pass through. Or I'm sorry, no, that was the first one, and then the third one, and so forth, and then until we get to the end, and then there's a final output into this switch here, which then passes through an inverter. Since the doors are powered closed, you need to be providing power to them in order to keep them closed. So I've even thought about probably just splitting off some batteries and creating some backup batteries for if the power ever does fail, like keep those doors locked, at least for a duration. Like, it'll keep them locked for a time. Or, you know, if it's on its own battery, its own solar cell, it will never run out. So, so what else do we got? Oh yeah, the other mechanisms for the floor switch. We gotta get to that. So this, and then look up at this logic. So basically, this is real simple. Let's get back down there. Basically, it's just like, if the door is open, the floor switch will reset the mechanism. If it's closed, it'll open. So that's all it is. But you just see, yeah, here, it's like these two switches. That's it. So door open switch coming out of the inverter, hitting the auto switch, and passing it through the normally closed switch. And see the normally closed switch, I step on it. It opens the door. Yeah, and so step on it and it'll close. So, that's all I got today. That's all I got for now. I'm just gonna work on building out that logic to make the combination more specific to the combination you're hitting, like in order, and kind of continuing to build my major like control room and kind of like all these. I want to put like more power doors, and just like I'm kind of like pretending like they're kind of vents that open to allow the oxygen into the extractor space, and like you like shut it down, and they're not. It's kind of like not taking in oxygen kind of thing. I maybe put like a bunch of vents up and down the side of this or something that kind of open in a cool like sequence, or like one at a time, or like I've got these landing lights that I kind of want to have flashing like boom, 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 flash, 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 and have that kind of just little things that kind of make it seem more alive, more realistic, more fully fleshed out. Like, if you watched all this and you got this far, thanks. Hope I did okay. Please leave any and all like comments and criticisms down below, and I will seriously try to make more of these and see if they get better. Yeah, thanks again. Have a good day.